Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the stream. Tonight we're going to be making a few things. We're going to start off with a little bit of aioli, spicy aioli, um, which we're going to be putting on top of our fried chicken sandwiches. And then we're also going to be making some onion rings. We're going to kind of do these. We're going to start off with the aioli because it can chill for a little bit. And while it chills, I can work on the rest of the stuff. And we'll probably be doing uh, the onion rings and the fried chicken at approximately the same time. Um, those two recipes are from Kenji Lopez-Alt at the Food Lab and Serious Eats. His stuff is all amazing. That's why I use it all the time, because he is an amazing person who really knows what he's doing, as you would probably expect from a award-winning chef. All right, so we're going to start off with this by making our own mayonnaise, um, because that just feels like a good thing to do. And we're going to be starting off with an egg, which I had slowly sitting over here and slowly warming up. So we're going to start off with an egg at approximately room temperature. And we're going to be putting in about a tablespoon of Dijon mustard. I'm just using kind of a spicy brown mustard because I don't have specifically Dijon. We're going to be using about a tablespoon of that. Just a little bit more there. There we go. That should be about a tablespoon. Red or white wine vinegar, which I thought I had right here, and I am not seeing, which means that I left it over on the table instead. We're just going to be using some red wine vinegar here, and we're just using about, looks like about a tablespoon of that. And again, I'm just kind of guesstimating here. That should be about right there. And then we're going to use about a quarter teaspoon of salt. Should be about that much. And then it says a cup of neutral flavored oil. I've got soybean oil, but that's really not what they recommend. So I'm going to be pulling over my absolutely enormous jug of canola oil, which we're going to be using to fry everything in a little bit. We're going to see if we could put in about a cup of this. Out to about there. That's about half a cup. That's about a cup, and I just realized I messed this up because the oil is supposed to be added after it's already started processing. So, oh well. We'll try it anyway. If I have to start it all over again, I can do that. Not a big deal. And it might turn out. So, just off camera here, in place of my normal blender, or a mixer rather, I have a food processor. Just drop this down. I'm going to do my normal thing where half of the time is just me trying to figure out how to properly show things. And let's see, what's that look like? Oh, it appears to have frozen. So you can't actually see any of this. You're just hearing me talk, and yeah, that's all. Well, let's see if we can get that fixed. There we go. Alright, that should be a little bit better. You get to see my messy baking shelves behind it. And we're just going to go ahead and process this and pretend that we've done everything right up until this point. We're going to bump up that speed a little bit. We're just going to see if this actually does come together the way that it's supposed to. This is actually the first time that I've used this new food processor, so I'm still kind of getting used to it. I found out it's got this little bowl, which is perfect. I probably noticed it on the page when I was buying it, but I hadn't specifically taken note of it. It actually looks like it's kind of been okay. Let's see here. It's maybe not as thick as I would like, but at least it's a start. It's not as bad as I would expect, given that I completely botched the initial directions. The fact that I didn't actually add all the oil probably works in my favor here. Now, this is still looking too liquid, which means that I probably... Oh, apparently if the mayo seems too thin, slowly stream in more oil with the processor running until thick. So I guess that the mayonnaise itself thickens from the oil? I thought it thickened from the whipped egg, but hey, nobody comes to me to be like, why does all this work? They just hopefully come because they think it's sort of interesting. So let's keep that running. We're just going to try and stream in just a little bit of oil and try not to pour it everywhere. Might be too much oil. Smells like mayonnaise, so hey, we're in the right spot there. Let's take a look at this. No, that's actually looking like mayonnaise. I guess I managed to not completely muck that up. Come on. There we go. I think it needs just a little bit more. It's still just a little bit thin, but it's actually kind of doing what it was supposed to do. So we're going to turn this back on. And I'm going to add a little bit more oil here. And I think that'll be what we need it to be. I'm just going to keep that mixing for another moment or two because it kind of says to process it well. Try to get some of the oil off my hands because that big container is kind of difficult to really properly hold. Alright, let's take a look. That looks like mayonnaise. Let's taste it and see if it tastes like mayonnaise or if I need to add in more salt or other stuff. Tastes like mayonnaise. A little spicy mayonnaise because of the Dijon. I'm going to add in just a little bit of salt. But other than that, I mean, that's already a pretty nice base. I could probably stand it to be a little bit thicker, but honestly, it's pretty good just the way that it is. Alright, so there's a little bit of salt. I'm going to add in, keep on going down the list here for the spicy aioli, which includes adding in some lemon juice, and rather than, I don't have any fresh lemons, so I'm using the pre-packaged lemon juice, which is not as good, but it's what I have available, and really cooking is all about what you have available. And that looks like a couple teaspoons there, which is what we're looking for. I actually like a kind of a citrusy mayonnaise, so I'm okay if there's a little bit extra in there. And put that away so that I don't forget it later. And then it says a couple teaspoons of hot sauce. At least here we tend to use Frank's. This is going to be a nice spicy aioli. Getting pretty close to the bottom of this this jar. Alrighty, and then a couple cloves of minced garlic. Normally I will mince my own, but I thought I actually had some pre-minced stuff right here. which will speed things up a little bit. I'm already running a little bit behind because of those technical issues earlier. So we are going to use pre-minced garlic. I'm cheating. But hey, if it gets it done within a reasonable amount of time and it tastes good, it's really all we can ask for, right? All right, so I got that. I'm gonna get my teaspoons here. And this is just a couple cloves. So we're gonna add in about that much, and then maybe about that much, because honestly, in a spicy aioli, is there really such a thing as too much garlic? I don't think so. Hopefully none of you guys think so, but even if you don't, you aren't here. And it's me that has to eat it. And I say that there's no such thing as too much garlic until there absolutely is. And actually, the aioli recommends you put in some lemon juice there, so I'm kind of covered there. So let's go ahead and I'm going to start this off low. Turn it on. Slowly start spinning it up. And I'll have lots to keep in the fridge for later. I love how every time that I'm like, oh yeah, that's plenty fast, I could always turn it up just a little bit more. Alright, that's pretty good. So let's give that a quick taste. Yeah, that's really good. It's got that nice bit of spice there. It's got the little bit of egg. Yeah, that came out, that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Alright, we are going to pour this off into a small container. And I'm going to pop it into the refrigerator to let it chill for a little bit. Because that is the proper way of doing things. I know I'm going to be leaving some on the container because it's not that smooth. That's okay, but this stuff's good enough that I want to make sure that I don't leave too much of it behind. This is going to be great. Alright, so pop that over there to be washed. Point this down a little bit more. Pop a lid on there. And pop this into the refrigerator. I actually wonder where it can go in the refrigerator and then just decide to set it on top of something else. Because that is the way. Okay, so on to the next thing. Now that we have our toppings, which I mean we'll be using the classic pickles and everything as well, but we've got at least our first toppings, or our top toppings. And I'm going to put this away before I forget it, and put this away before I forget it. Spend a moment reflecting on how my refrigerator has gotten so full and wondering what what I need to do in order to increase the size of my refrigerator. Alright, so now we have the fried chicken sandwiches and the onion rings, both of which are going to require frying in oil. They have two different temperatures. So the fried chicken sandwiches take 425 is their recommended, is how hot the oil is supposed to be. The onion rings is at 375. So I'm thinking that the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to do the onion rings first, and then let them See, the thing is though, I don't want the onion rings to get too cool. And I know that the chicken is going to take, um, looks like about 4 minutes, 4 to 8 minutes. So I'm sort of tempted to do the fried chicken first because it will hold its heat longer than the onion rings will. So if I do the fried chicken first, I can set that aside to kind of cool a little bit, put some oil on top of, or foil on top of it, um, and then it won't lose heat that fast. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that might be what I'll do. I'll get them both done at the same time. But then in terms of the actual putting them in the oil, I'll probably do the fried chicken first. So that way we can have the onion rings straight out of the oil before they've had any chance to really cool. Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. All right. So with that, with that decided, I've already done a little bit of work on both of these. I already did the pickling or the soaking and marinating in pickle juice for the fried chicken, and it's currently sitting in the refrigerator, still soaking up that pickle flavor. And I've already frozen the onion rings. So for both of these, it should be pretty fast. Um, but let's start off with the chicken because that just seems like a decent way to do it. Let's see, this should be pretty straightforward. We're going to be pulling the chicken out of the bag and discarding the pickle juice. Patting chicken dry with paper towels. Obviously, you don't want it to be too wet. Um, I'll pull out my buttermilk and then, so the buttermilk will be the liquid, and then we'll do the flour and some of the pepper in a different dredge. Can I use the same dredge for both of these? No, looks like they're going to take two different dredges. Okay. All right. So let's pull the chicken out. Dropped it on the floor, although it was only the bottom. It's okay. All right. This chicken still feels maybe mildly frozen. Shouldn't be a big deal. Just might mean it needs to sit in the oil for a little bit longer. Or I can toss this in to warm up. Yeah, that's what I think I'll do. I'm going to let this warm up for a few minutes. Not too warm. Don't want to get any unsafe temperatures or anything, but I'm going to make sure that this is not frozen when I toss it in because I have a feeling that that will result in undercooked chicken at the center. If my bowl would actually work. One of those days. It feels like everything's mostly going okay, but there's every now and then there's just a little bit of a monkey wrench thrown into the equation, and it's just making you kind of question how you're going about things. All right. So the chicken is currently making sure that it's defrosting. So let's pull out the onion rings. So these are very frozen. I think we should be pretty good here. Yeah, those are looking good. Looks like we had a couple that maybe broke a little bit. Probably when I closed the door on them. So we're going to put these into a bowl. And I've actually got a bowl right here. We're going to put them into. And I just froze these today, so these have only been in the freezer for a little bit, but they are nice and frozen. Just the way that they are supposed to be. We're going to separate these a little bit, and then what we're going to do is I'm going to put some warm-ish water, not hot water, but some warmish water, tepid water, over them to kind of let them thaw out a little bit. The freezing is done to kind of break apart the cells to make them a little bit easier to fry. And there's actually a little thin paper membrane that we're going to have to remove from the inside of all of these. And the freezing helps to get that to just come right off, supposedly. I haven't done this before, so I'm going purely based off of what Sirius eats and Kenji says. But hey, he's been pretty reliable so far. Alright, so I'm just putting some water on them, letting them quickly thaw. And they thaw really, really, really quickly. Like they're already flexible again. Alright, we're going to pull out a rimmed baking sheet. I've got one right here. And I'm going to balance this here. There we go. It's like that's a little precarious. I'm going to get some paper towels. And I'm just going to put that there. We're going to transfer these from the bowl onto this baking sheet so they can dry off a little bit. We can work with them a little. This is kind of fun. How often do you get to work with frozen onions like this? We're just going to be making sure these are fully dry, hence the paper towels. It's really quite incredible how fast that they went from frozen to very not frozen. All right, let's get rid of this bowl. Set that aside. I'll probably be able to use it later. And we're going to grab some more paper towels. To anyone talking in chat, I don't even have it. I don't have it in front of me right now. I will later. But so if anyone's saying anything interesting or counseling, good advice or anything like that, I can't see it. So if you are telling me lots of good advice, I'll be able to look at it later and be like, if only I'd glanced over at the screen. But it's behind me. One of these days I'll put a monitor and possibly a small computer right here at my kitchen stand so that I can see stuff like that. And actually probably also have some extra cameras. So I don't need to keep adjusting all the time. I'll be able to just set up a couple things and never have to worry about it again. But hey, that takes time and effort. And time, at least, is in short supply these days. Alright, so that's pretty dry. So now what we're going to do is we're going to peel off the inner papery membrane, which comes straight off like that. Just make sure that that's no longer there, and that just comes straight off now that we've frozen this and thawed it. And that's the thing, if you ever bite into an onion ring and the batter comes away, well, this ring is part of, or this little membrane is part of why. Because it expands and contracts at a different rate than the rest of the ring, the onion ring. Because obviously there's a lot less mass. and so that it shrinks and expands at a different rate, and that breaks away the batter. So by removing that, I know that I did actually pull it off with great difficulty just because I was curious when I was freezing some of these, so not all of them will have it on it. But by removing that, it means that we will be more likely to just have the breading stick successfully. And remain stuck, which is always the important part. But yeah, here on this one, I'm really hoping that I'm pointing this up at the camera. I can crane my neck around. I think that's roughly in the right spot. On this one, you can kind of see just the membrane just peels away off the inside. I know that's not a ring. It'll be a little bit of an onion stick, but that's okay. And it should come straight off with just a little bit of a rub. A couple more, maybe a little bit more stubborn. And I claim no credit for figuring out that whole thing about that membrane because I have never made onion rings before. So this is a first time. Usually on the streams I try to do something that's a little new to me so that I can be inspired to keep pushing a little bit, if that makes sense. But Kenji Lopez-Alt figured it out, or at least he's the person that wrote it down so that I could read it. I'm sure there's plenty of other food scientists out there who have worked this out. There's probably all sorts of interesting ways at the plants where they actually mass produce onion rings, because obviously most places you get onion rings aren't manually making them themselves, making them themselves. They usually they'll get Sodexo or somebody to send them a big bag of onion rings that they can just dunk into a fryer and sell. So I'm sure that there's a food scientist at whoever Sodexo's supplier is that has figured this out, and they probably use something like high pressure water jets, I'm guessing, to blast a membrane off, or they just don't worry about it. I don't know. I mean, I've had disappointing onion rings before. Don't have a lot of onion rings, so I haven't had it. But in the few times that I've had onion rings, I've had enough disappointments that I've been like, oh yeah, I know that feeling, which means it's got to be fairly prevalent. It's kind of nice. I got like a little stack right there of all these ones ready to go. And so we're going to be putting these into a combination of, there's going to be some paprika in there, which is going to be pretty great. A little bit of baking soda, and actually both baking soda and baking powder for crispness. A little bit of beer, a little bit of vodka, which of course, the alcohol is going to evaporate off, but it's going to help with that texture and taste. Boy, these are a lot of onions. I was thinking when I was doing this earlier, I was looking at the pile and I was like, oh, maybe I should just do an extra one, just in case. I think that one's too small. Yeah, just to have plenty of onion rings around. And now that I'm having to go through and pull this membrane off, I think I'm seeing why the recommendation was really just for 2 onions. any more than that, you're going to start thinking that maybe there's better uses of your time, like making that fried chicken. You have this nice little pile of that translucent membrane. Kind of wondering, I think that's probably, I've gone through about 2/3 of these so far. So hopefully not too much more. Kind of get a feel for it. Yeah, this one's going to split apart, I think. And I can't get that membrane off, so therefore it's out. When I started, I was like, oh, I could save all of these. Now that I've gotten, a pretty decent pile going, and I know that these are all going to puff up once they've gone into the oil, I'm thinking probably don't need all of them. I can be a little bit more discerning. So the ones that are tearing a lot, I'm thinking they may not make it. Ooh, wow, that one just came straight off. Now that they're starting to warm up a little bit, I'm sort of thinking that this is sticking a little bit better than it was for the ones at the very beginning. While this is going on, I probably should have the oil preheating. Yeah, we've got a little ways at least. I don't think it's going to take that long to heat up. I had to go out and get another temperature probe so that I could do this, because the temperature probe that I have is an instant read thermometer, which is great, but it's not fantastic. Why did I just put that paper over here? I don't know. Get distracted and all sorts of things happen. Anyway, so the probe that I have is an instant read thermometer, which is great, except for I'd have to stand there over the oil and just watch it go up. And I was not, that did not seem like a good use of my time. So I went out to Target, got a basic probe thermometer, which is technically for grilling, and I set that up instead. Yeah, that one's... So now I'll be able to just kind of glance over and see what the temperature of it is, and I can even set like a alert, so when it reaches 375, I'll know about it, and it can beep at me, tell me to quit heating up the oil. I'm really hoping it'll make everything a lot more pleasant. Alright, down to the last couple here. It occurs to me that I'm essentially working with something that's translucent and white on a white background, pulling something that is also translucent and white away from the other translucent and white things. And this is probably not what you would really call, good television. Fortunately, this is YouTube, so I don't need to be good television. I just need to be vaguely entertaining. At least if the rest of YouTube is anything to judge by. I think this is the point where I'm supposed to say, if you like it, like and subscribe. But honestly, it's kind of annoying when people do that. Every single onion ring is handed by a Keebler elf. That's the only thing that really does make sense. I mean, there's just nothing else that would make sense. It's Keebler elves all the way down. And now that is my headcanon, and you cannot convince me otherwise. Boy, those paper towels are just soaked. I'm going to see if I can squeeze a little bit more water out of this. Maybe just a little bit. Lay down another small thing of paper towels. I'm going to dump these onion rings out onto the other one. Well, you know, I don't have any car chases in this. That's what I really mean. I'll get on that. I'll get my production team to figure out a way to do a car chase in the middle of an example cooking show. All right. So those are our onion rings. So now we're going to go ahead and preheat the oil. I'm going to do this kind of off camera because I don't really feel like moving the camera over here and then immediately moving it back, because this is really going to take a minute or two. But I am taking a lot of canola oil, and I am putting let's see, how big is this jug? This jug is a gallon, so there's like, what, 4 quarts in a gallon, something like that? So I am putting about half of this, approximately, into that. Yep, that's about half. And more importantly, the tip of the probe is now covered, which is probably the most important thing for me personally in terms of my personal ability to deal with this. And we're going to pop that on high. Again, it's the 375. Let's see if this thing likes that. I'm just setting my alert temperature up to 375. And I'm doing this in an old, so back before I got the coated Dutch oven that you guys have seen me use before, I didn't know much about Dutch ovens. And I was like, well, an uncoated one's basically the same, and it's cheaper. And I found one on clearance. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll just use an uncoated Dutch oven, and that's really all that I need. Turns out there are reasons that people use coated Dutch ovens, namely that they're a heck of a lot easier. This thing doesn't actually tell me what the smoke point is. It's like, don't put it on, don't let it smoke, and it's like, but it doesn't tell me when it smokes. It's got a decent smoke point, I think. All right, so that is heating up. I have a feeling that'll heat up pretty fast. So what we're going to do is we are going to combine the flour, cornstarch, baking powder, baking soda, and paprika into a medium bowl, and then in a small bowl we're going to be putting the beer and vodka together. All right. Bowls. It says small bowl and medium bowl, but I'm actually going to use my large bowl and my medium bowl because I have a feeling that that's just going to work out a little bit better. We've got our large bowl, and we've got our medium bowl. And in the large bowl, we're going to be putting in, is that a half cup of cornstarch? That is a half cup of cornstarch. That's a lot of cornstarch. Fortunately, I happen to have a lot, so not really a problem. Let me grab my measuring cup. Normally I do measure by weight. Today I don't really know how much a half cup of cornstarch weighs. Not something I've ever really needed to know before. I'm going to turn down this thing because it's already heating up pretty fast, and I want to make sure it doesn't heat up too fast. All right. I don't know how much a half cup of cornstarch weighs, so therefore we are going to use a fork and kind of sift it in to make sure we aren't compressing it too much, because cornstarch is compressible. And if you're not cooking by weight, you can at least make sure you're not compressing and compacting whatever it is that you're doing down inside of your measuring utensil. That's about right. I know there's still a little bit of water left in the bottom of that bowl. That's okay. It's not going to impact what we're doing much. All right, so that's our half cup of cornstarch. We're going to do a teaspoon. Teaspoon. I need to reorganize this drawer. All right, teaspoon of baking soda. No, baking powder. Don't really want to get those mixed up. All right, so we've got 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And then a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, but I'm just going to kind of eyeball that based off of the teaspoon that I already have out. About that, maybe a little bit extra. A little bit extra, not a lot extra. There we go. A little bit extra. Baking powder, baking soda, and then looks like a 1/2 teaspoon of paprika. And I swear I just had the paprika right here. Nope, right there in front of me. It was right there. It's a conspiracy, I tell you, it's a conspiracy. And we're going to do a 1/2 teaspoon. Well, that's a lot more than a 1/2 teaspoon. Yeah, a little extra paprika, never hurt anyone. All right, paprika. Then, oops, should probably make sure I put this back on. Then in my large bowl, we're going to be getting a ice cold beer, which I realized right before everything went live today that I did not have an ice cold one. I just had room temperature ones, and I had to quickly freeze that. And make sure that's rinsed out since I was using it earlier. And explosions. Yeah, see, there we go. I'll get my production team to get the car chases and explosions all set up. All right, so we're going to do a 1/2 cup of beer. Oh, 3/4 of a cup. You know, I don't actually drink, so I had to, when I started doing all of this, I had to actually go out and buy beer for some of these recipes. And since I don't drink, it was very, very difficult for me to figure out which ones I should get. Because I don't really know what the difference is between all of them. Alright, so that's 3/4 of a cup of beer, and see, that is why I didn't use the small bowl. My small bowl would have already been almost full. And then we're going to use a 1/4 cup of 80 proof vodka, or just whatever vodka I happen to have lying around, which is Smirnoff, I guess. And it does not say how many proof it is, at least not in big letters that I can understand. 40% alcohol by volume, that's maybe 80 proof? I don't know. Got whipped cream vodka, that's 35% volume by alcohol by volume, and that's 70 proof. So I'm going to assume that 40% alcohol by volume is probably something that's pretty close to 80 proof. I don't know that. I'm just sort of guessing. I don't know how much of a difference it really makes. So we've got vodka, we've got beer, and for both of these sides we're going to mix them up. Technically I think it says whisk, so I could have grabbed my whisk, but Didn't think about that when I was over there, and now it's all the way over there. I'm all the way over here. So basically, I can't do that now. Alright, that looks pretty well mixed to me. And we'll just give this a quick little mix. Alright, we're going to slowly add the beer mixture to the flour mixture, apparently. We're going to be mixing it until we have the consistency of, what it says, so thick paint. And that we may not need all of the beer. I guess that's good to know. That's thicker than thick paint, so therefore let's add some more. Well, see, that's more like thin paint now. Of course, we do have all this cornstarch that... Oh, and I forgot the most important thing, which is a cup of flour. Well, that'll probably do it. It's like, boy, flour. I don't remember any flour being in this, but I guess maybe if they're talking about like a flour replacement, sure. Alright. I'm just going to use this half cup because I still have cornstarch in it. And I'm not too concerned about being perfectly accurate. Because we aren't really... This isn't something that requires high precision. As long as we're in the rough ballpark. That's half a cup. And this should be another full cup. There we go. Alright. There we go. That's the cup of flour that I forgot about. So now we can mix all that in, and I can... Yeah, that's also much less hot orange. That's definitely thicker than thick paint. Sometimes people write recipes and I feel like they're trying to describe something that is very obvious to them. Because they know what texture it needs to be because they've made it. But sometimes something is lost a little bit on that translation. Kenji is better than a lot in that. But every now and then I do read one of his recipes and I'm like, I think I know what he's going for here, but I'm not 100% certain. Alright, I might not have needed to add all of that. This might be slightly thinner than thick paint. But I'd say that's still pretty thick and pretty paint-like. So I think that that's exactly where we need to be. The batter should leave a trail if you drift back into the bowl off the whisk. Yeah, I'd say that's leaving a trail. Do not over whisk. Alright. So, that is what we need in order to get started frying. Which means it is time to check in on the fried chicken again. Meanwhile, it looks like the oil is doing pretty good. That's definitely much hotter than I would like to ever have my hand be too close to, which I think is probably about the right temperature. Scary hot. That's the approximate temperature. And I'm just setting the onion rings and the batter out of the way. Yes, that is definitely hot enough. I am turning this down to low to kind of maintain that heat, and it'll be easy to get it back up to temperature in a couple of minutes when we get to that point. Alright, so fried chicken. Yep, these are now fully defrosted, and they're looking pretty good. Get rid of some of that water. Alright, so that's our chicken breast. Technically, the recipe calls for chicken thighs. I did not have boneless, skinless chicken thighs, so therefore I used boneless, skinless chicken breasts. I think that these are just a little bit thicker, so I'll probably just have to pound them down a little bit, which is not a huge deal. Basically, whatever I do, I mean, I know the texture will be a little bit different, but I'm not too concerned about that. So let's see here. I think I need to pat these dry. Yes, so pat them dry, then buttermilk into a medium bowl. Fortunately, I actually happen to have a medium bowl. It's the one I just had vodka in. Should bring an interesting experience to the chicken. So we are going to go ahead and transfer these out. Yeah, I'll just need to pound these down a little bit. And I can do that when they're dry. So that is our pickle juice, which is going away. It actually smells pretty good. I was kind of skeptical about the pickle juice back before I did it, but I'm thinking that actually does smell pretty good. So in terms of marination methods, at least so far, I can recommend this one. It was also pretty easy. You just get the chicken breast, dump them in a bag with a bunch of salt and pepper so they get seasoned all over. And pour pickle juice on top of them. Can recommend. We'll see how they taste when they are out. Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and grab another paper towel just to kind of have be on top, and I'm going to pound these down. Try to get them to a slightly thinner realm, and I don't have a proper chicken pounding device. I don't know what that I don't really know exactly what that device is called, so I'm just using a glass, which I am holding like this, and I am hitting them really hard with it. And you know what? That actually works out pretty well. It's kind of what I do whenever I need to do something like this. Tenderizer, that's what I'm thinking of. It's a tenderizer. I don't have a proper one. Works well most of the time. Until it starts to until the chicken moves a little. Try to get these a little bit flatter so that they cook evenly. I think the first one worked better. It probably depends on which side I have up, now that I think about it. Let's try doing that side. Yep, that works a heck of a lot better. So smooth side up to actually get it to work well. Or work as well as it can. It's not a perfect method. Hey, it's not too bad. 3 out of 4. without issues. Good odds in my book. Yes, tenderizer. Like I said, I keep glancing over the chat, like 2 minutes later, and being like, oh yeah, that's what I was looking for. Looks like the oil's back down to 375, which I still say is a scary temperature for oil. Just like if I were to accidentally drop my hand into that if I was careless, that would be a real problem. Alright, so buttermilk. We're going to grab our bowl here. And we're going to grab some buttermilk, which I had right here. Which just happened to end up behind something else. I swear it's hiding. So we're going to be getting a cup of buttermilk. And let's see. I think that's outside the camera's viewpoint, so we're going to do it over here. So I've got a cup of buttermilk, which I'm pouring into this bowl. Let that sit for a second to collect all of the buttermilk at the bottom so that I can pour it out again. Alrighty. So that's what we're going to be using to start our coat. Let's turn this a little bit. There we go. And we're going to get our dish of flour mixture set up next to that. And for this, we're going to be doing, it says it needs 1.5 cups of self-rising flour, which I do not have. So instead, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using all-purpose flour. There is actually a way to substitute for that. So 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. Let's see, it's, how much is the weight of a cup of flour? Let's find out. Hey Google, what does 1.5 cups of flour weigh?
On the website kingarthurbaking.com,
Really?
they say a cup of all-purpose flour weighs 4¼ ounces or
120 grams. So we're looking for 180 grams of flour. We've got so many smart devices, they all start responding differently. All right. So, that's just over 180. It's 185. So that is 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. Then we're going to use a tablespoon, if I can find my tablespoon. We're going to use a tablespoon of this baking powder. And then a teaspoon of salt. I keep on leaving various measuring devices over on my other workspace. Yeah, teaspoon. All right, so we are going to take that flour, which we are going to mix together with a fork. Yep, thanks for tuning in. And just going to make sure that's well mixed. Don't need this scale to be here anymore. And we're going to just take some fresh pepper, freshly ground pepper, I should say. tablespoon of pepper. All right, that's a lot of pepper. It's time for me to get some more of this pepper. That should be pretty good, I think. Maybe a bit more. Man, I'm out of pepper, so hopefully that's all we needed. I'll have to get a Target order or Walmart or Whole Foods. They're all doing online pickup now, which is pretty great. And we're going to take some of this buttermilk. We're just going to kind of plop it in. And we're doing this to create these um, little like nodules of buttermilk flour mixture, which will stick to our chicken for extra little bits of crunch and deliciousness. Or at least that's what Kenji says. What I've been told by others really does work. All right. So we've got our two dredging mixtures here. And hey, we're about an hour in, which is pretty good timing. Make sure the oil has come back up to temperature because we're going to be wanting that again pretty shortly here. I'm going to set this up to 425 because we are starting off. Ooh, it does not actually go up to 425. It goes up to 390, so I'll set it to 390. We'll deal with the rest of it when it comes. Okay, so we are going to get this chicken into the buttermilk. Working with just a couple pieces at a time. Well, let's see if we can fit them all in. Why not? It's the worst that can happen. I always say that, and then one of these days the room's going to explode or something, and everyone will just turn to me and be like, that's what the worst that could happen would be. But hey, a room explosion every now and then after saying, what's the worst that can happen and tempting fate for years. I mean, I feel like that's pretty good odds. All right. So we've got that. We've got our oil slowly heating back up. I'm going to grab a plate to put the chicken on. All right. So we're going to transfer the chicken carefully, letting any excess drip off. Just put that over here. And really get that well coated. We want it to be completely covered. We don't want to have any chicken showing. We really want this to look kind of like that. Kind of that thick and shaggy breading mixture here. Just a little bit more over there. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. So we're going to repeat that with the next one. Get that in there, make sure that it is fully coated in like every available surface has had flour applied to it. Want to make sure that this breading is really going to be thick, is really going to work well. Yeah, that's looking pretty good there. Since I've got that buttermilk and flour mixture, I'm going to kind of get that off my fingers and mix it back in. And we're just going to repeat that for these other pieces here. Though actually, I might let this one sit for a second. And slowly pop the others in because they're going to have to fry for a minute or two. But on the other hand, I don't really like mixing tasks, and I don't really want to be working over here if I've got something else that's going on behind my back. If that makes sense. Alright, the oil's hit 390. It's a very annoying beeping. I know that so that if you're in the middle of Thanksgiving or something and the turkey suddenly is ready to go and everyone's ignoring it, that someone will eventually come to check it out, but it is kind of annoying. Ah, that's actually the highest that this goes. I thought that it said it would go up higher. Well, that's not great. Let's see if my instant read thermometer goes any higher. It's at 400, 408, 410, 412. All right, so at least I will have a way to double check temperature, despite being out of bounds on one of them. All right, so on to this last one, and by the time we do this, the temperature on the oil should be about right. I guess I'll just have to go get a different temperature probe for the next time I make this. Because if it's not going to go up to where I need it to go up to, that's a problem. Yeah, it'll still be useful for other stuff, but not what I was hoping it would be useful for. Alright, I think that should be pretty good. So we are going to go ahead. I'm going to... Let's see, is there anything else I need to do? I don't think so. So, I'm going to wash off my hands. And get ready to move that camera over to where I will be frying these. This will be all that action and adventure, and hopefully not the explosions that we were talking about earlier. I really need to figure out a better way to deal with my camera here, I think. Alright, hopefully this will work. This is a big pot of very, very hot oil. And won't lie, I've been kind of putting this off a little bit because I haven't done this before and I am a little bit nervous. But I will prevail. So we're going to do probably one piece at a time, at least to start with. I'm going to try to not horribly burn myself. Well, so far so good. That is definitely spattering a lot, so I'm going to carefully reach over it, drop it back down. I think that might be just a little bit too high. I'm going to move my computer, I think. So enough spattering going on. Yeah, I think this is maybe a little bit too warm. Yeah, it's right around 415. It's actually a little bit cooler than was originally suggested. I'm going to get a plate. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to get another rimmed baking sheet. A small one. Actually, no, I'm going to go for the fully sized one. So I can put the cooling rack on that. Let's see here. That's looking pretty good for the first side. Actually, both sides are looking pretty good. That is looking pretty delicious. The oil temperature did not drop as far as it was supposed to, so I'm a little uncertain if this is actually fully done. Looks like it's about 385. It is coming back down. I think that that's done. I'm going to put that over there on that sheet. I'm going to once again take my life into my hands. It's not too bad if you just carefully lay everything in. We're going to adjust the heat up a little bit because it's dropping heat a bit faster than it's supposed to. Yeah, these are a little bit big to put in multiple at once. nicely golden brown. Turn that over. It's kind of interesting to see it change color. Don't see that in a lot of cooking where it just happens straight in front of your eyes like that. Probably flip this over again. Just want to make sure that it's fully even on both sides. Looks like it's in the temperature range that it should be, so it should be taking about 2 minutes per side, approximately. This one's looking less burnt than my first one, which I think is encouraging. I'm not gonna. I keep on going back and forth on whether I should do multiple pieces at once. I could probably do 2. I'm not certain that I could do 2. I think that that's looking pretty darn good. Set that there. We're just gonna keep taking it kind of slow and should be done pretty shortly. So it turns out the uncoated Dutch oven is not very good for like baking breads or anything like that, but it is great for frying because you can fit a lot of oil in it, and it's still got nice high walls that prevent a lot of the oil from just spattering everywhere. I mean, I'm seeing spatters around, but not nearly as many as there would be if I were doing this in something smaller. So I am not saying that this is the perfect vessel, because that would probably be an actual dedicated fryer. But in terms of, what it could be, it's pretty good. It does look like that temperature is dropping again, so we're going to go ahead and bump up the heat. Not really sure if it's coming across on the stream, but that's my temperature gauge. Once the temperature did drop, it did start properly reading it. Let's see. Yeah, that comes across. So we're supposed to keep between 300 and 350. You know what? I think I can sneak this in over here, so we're going to try that. See if we can get this camera a little bit closer. Just a little bit too big for what I would like it to do, but that should be decent. Yeah, since I've got two of them in there, I am increasing the heat there. I do see that dropping. Actually quite rapidly. One of the reasons for doing this in a Dutch oven is definitely for that extra thermal mass, because you do want to make sure that the temperature varies as little as possible when you put it in. Alright, I think that's looking pretty good to me. I can't look inside to make sure that it's cooked inside, but I think it probably is. Transfer that off to the plate. Alrighty, so those are getting pretty close to being done. Alright, this is looking pretty good to me. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. And then I'm going to set these here to drip off for a second. And we're going to go ahead and quickly batter these onion rings because I think that those are pretty good. So we are going to, yep. I've already turned down the heat on the oil because I want to make sure that it doesn't get to be too high. We're going to go ahead and just start popping these guys into the oil, or to the batter mixture. Let's see how thickly. It says let any excess drop off. And those are looking pretty good. I don't know how well the camera can actually see it, but the first ones are definitely nice and golden brown. So we're going to get a, we could put them on the same baking tray, I think. We are just trying to make sure these are flipped over and able to kind of cook on both sides. I'm just working to make sure that all these are ready to be battered up and tossed in as soon as the other group comes out. See, fly halfway, about 4 minutes overall. Okay. think that quite counts as a deep golden brown yet. So we're going to keep this going for another minute or two. I think these are probably done. They are looking delicious. And I'm going to say these are probably done too. Looks like I did end up with some split batter there. We were hoping to prevent, but oh well. Can't be perfect every time. Alright, so that is our first group out. So let's work on our second here. Try and make sure I've got a decent number of these that will all go in at about the same time so they'll all come out at about the same time. Because it's all about timing. So we're going to see if we can get these all to come out at basically the same time, at which point it'll finally be time for me to eat. This did take a little bit longer than I was anticipating. Alrighty. Have a nice sizzle to them. Alright. Definitely smelling pretty good as well. Let's get in here and turn these over. It's like doing it as a larger batch does cause them to stick together a little bit more. But I think that's okay. Yeah, those are looking pretty nice. Might try one of the ones that's already finished over here. Let's give this one a shot. Mmm. Mmm. Yeah, that's pretty great. Got that little bit of an onion. It's got a nice batter on it. I am definitely a fan of that. Mm. I think our heat's dropped a little bit more than we were hoping for. Let's see, we've got to keep it at, doesn't say exactly. I think that this is looking pretty good though. I think these are about ready for me to pull out. So that's what I'm going to do. Try to get off all the excess oil that I can. Yeah, as these cool, they're getting that extra nice, delicious brown color. And let's finish up with the last batch. All right, these are the last ones. Dropped that last one in way too high, but it's okay. Haven't been splattered more than a little bit. Anytime you can walk away from cooking with, without having permanently burned yourself, it's a good day. I have to try donuts next. Maybe that could be next Sunday's stream. Man, these are good. I'm just gonna sneak another one. Yep, that's pretty great. That chicken's still nice and warm too. Actually, it's a nice warm spot there. heat to the oil because I don't really want it sizzling long after I pull these out. And speaking of which, we're going to pull these out. Whoops. Alrighty. I think that that is probably that. Pull this probe out so that I can drop the lid on that so that I don't accidentally drop anything else into that oil. And let's not put that silicone wire over the hot burner. We're just going to take a quick look here at what we made. I think that that's looking pretty good, especially for a first attempt. So, I guess with that, I'm going to say thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and I'm going to go enjoy this food. So thanks for hanging out, thanks for watching, and I will catch you next time. Bye.